Nigeria's Minister of Communications, Innovation and Digital Economy has laid out audacious goals for broadband connectivity and digital access in Nigeria, notably increasing broadband penetration from the current 45% to 70% by 2025. Joining us to discuss Nigeria's broadband industry is Kendall Ananyi, founder and CEO of Tizeti, an internet service provider. Kendall, thank you for joining us today.
Hi.
I'd like to get your thoughts on the Minister of Communication, Innovation and Digital Economy. He's laid out some quite ambitious targets in terms of how to boost the ICT sector, and of course, notably, like I mentioned earlier, broadband penetration. We're currently at 45%. He's looking at 70% by 2025. What are your thoughts in terms of how this could, what lies ahead and how this could be achieved?
Oh, it's definitely something that can be achieved, because if you recall, we already have a Nigerian National Broadband Plan. And so this just sets very clear goals, specific goals that are measurable on what is achievable. We already even have a good base to start from. We have about 6 submarine cables with 40 terabits and 55 licensed satellite operators. We have great 3G penetration, great 4G, and we are one of the few countries in Africa that has launched 5G. And so what all this needs to do is just build upon that, and then with various partners like the ISPs, most of the infrastructure companies, we can achieve that.
I was going to ask that as my next question. What does that mean for ISPs like Tizeti? I know that there's also a push for fiber, which I know is a lot better than what we had before that. But talk to us about how this could potentially change the landscape, especially for ISPs too.
Well, it's a very good time to be an internet provider today, because if you look at it, the biggest problem we have is we have submarine cables landing in Lagos at the port, but what fiber to take it to the customers is where the problem is at. And so a lot of ISPs use wireless to backhaul their traffic. So with the ambitious plan that we talked about, this would mean that we're moving from 54,000 kilometers of cable to almost doubling that to 98,000 kilometers of cable. So that way, the traffic that would typically go over wireless will go over fiber, and that will be much more faster, will be more resilient to rain. Some of the complaints that customers have, you have improved quality of service. And so for us as an ISP, we looked at those plans and we decided to expand nationwide across Nigeria. Most ISPs start off in Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt. But we've pushed past that. We already launched in Edo, Delta, and we're now pretty much in a lot of states in Nigeria.
I suppose that's not unconnected to your recent financing from Chapel Hill Denham. Could you talk to us about that?
Oh, sure. Chapel Hill Denham is it's a storied investment firm, and we're looking for a partner for long-term financing. You can get a loan, a short-term loan, from a bank, but if you're looking for long-term financing, which is what you typically do if you're building infrastructure. And so for us, we're building our business with fundamentals. We ensure that we use equity to get enough traction before we're taking on our first line of debt. And then if you think about those that have not been successful, well, part of the problem they've had is raising FX debt in foreign currency. And once the exchange rate moves against you, it becomes more expensive. Look at what has happened this year. So whatever FX debt you have has moved by 40%. So we're looking for long-term financing in Nigeria. In fact, I think Chapel is the only one, because they're only listed infrastructure fund, and we're able to get a long-term financing from them. And we're now able to even fund our infrastructure cheaper.
But what is the biggest infrastructure project you're working on right now? What's your main focus?
Okay, so we've expanded across 15 states. So we picked some of the states that we know can form regional heads, and we built out infrastructure to set up new offices there, installed our 4GLT towers are across them. And we're now going to be running additional fiber to each of those towers, but we have launched in those states, and we now have significant nationwide coverage. And wherever we don't have coverage, we have a partnership with a satellite provider. And we're also in conversations with Nigerian Communication Satellite, which incidentally is also one of the goals that Boston has, to increase their capacity by their utilization by 70% by 2027.
Now, I know that when it comes to laying of cables, especially by ISPs, there's that right-of-way issue with the local authorities, etc. Where are we where that is concerned? Has there been any progress?
Oh, there's been lots of progress. So you'd see one of the things you hear with every new governor is right of way, right of way. And most of them have reduced the prices and are more open to it. So getting permitting has been a lot easier. So for the towers we ran to those states, we had to get permitting for fiber, for the backhaul fiber to cut there, and it was much, much more easier. I think everybody's aware of the problem and they know that we're trying to remove all the roadblocks to ensuring that their residents of their states have great broadband penetration. So I think it's much better than a couple of years ago. Prices has even reduced. And the time, part of the problem, even beyond the price, time to get those permits has really, really reduced. Once you have all your documentation, within everything we did within a month, we got all our permits, both on the required to build the tower and then the backhaul.
So what is your outlook for the sector? I know the year has almost ended, but what is your outlook for the sector in the new year? And also regulation. Are players comfortable, satisfied with current regulations, or are there one or two policies that you believe the sector could benefit from right now?
I think things have changed too. If you look, you saw earnings just passed. You see all of the major telcos are reporting significant growth on the data side and then slowing of growth on the voice side. So there's more adoption of internet. One of the things that is good is we had the 5G auction. We had the NCC also released a lot of spectrum, and then there's also the MVNO players that are looking to launch in the next quarter. So the outlook is great. Policy-wise, telecoms has had stable policy, which is good. So it's just clarity of policy. Basically, the government is continuing doing that, and I'm happy with the policies of the Honorable Minister. A lot of that is not going to change, but more clarity. But even more on what the internet is used for, which is on the startup side, the telecom startup. The startup policy has also been signed, and so it's great that we can see use cases of the internet have a little bit more stability than you can think about in the financial sector.
Right. Kendall, thank you for talking to us today. And of course, we wish you all the best with your future projects. Kendall Ananyi, founder and CEO of Tizeti.